Hello and welcome back to Picks and Portraits. Recently, we've been looking at TV animation, both aesthetically and the programming of different networks. Most of these have been in the late 90s. This is when I grew up, and as fall, Halloween is my favorite time of year. I thought it'd be fun to revisit these networks and see how they celebrated Halloween. The original plan was to feature material from the three networks we've looked at, so Teletoon, Cartoon Network, and Fox Primetime, but I couldn't find any Teletoon clips from the 90s, so instead, we're going to be doing the other two, as well as what I consider to be the two seminal animated Halloween specials, Garfield's Halloween Adventure and The Great Pumpkin, both of which aired on CBS, at least during the period we're going to be talking about. I also acknowledge that it may be disingenuous to call this how 90s cartoons celebrate Halloween and only focus on these, so peppered in will be a few festive offerings from other networks. We're going to be going chronologically, beginning in 1990 through 1999, and we'll be looking at seasonal bumpers, promos, and IDs, as well as any special programming the networks may have had. We are at the mercy of what has been preserved and uploaded, but this did get much easier the further in time we went, so stay tuned. There's a lot of really great stuff coming up later on. Let's get started with a little bit of background on the specials. First, it's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. A few years ago, we talked at length about A Charlie Brown Christmas, and pretty much the same crew worked on that as worked on this. It premiered October 27th, 1966, and I'm pretty confident in saying that this was the first TV Halloween special. It set the groundwork for pretty much everything that came after it. It's setting the tone for this video. The plot features Linus skipping trick-or-treating and a Halloween party in favor of waiting in a pumpkin patch for the fabled Great Pumpkin, who is said to bring gifts similar to Santa Claus. I think it has something really interesting to say about blind faith. Linus is enthusiastic about the Great Pumpkin and wants to share it with Sally. He wants to share it with everybody. They stay up all night waiting, but it never comes. Yet Linus, afterwards, continues to believe. What you are seeing here is the original promo from 1966. As a bonus piece of loss, or I have it, so I guess obscure media, here's the original sponsor plugs for Coke and Dolly Madison cakes, which were cut on subsequent airings. It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown was produced for CBS and would air there every year until it moved to ABC in 2001, just outside of our range here. I grew up in an era of accessible media. I own this on VHS and eventually DVD, but for many, this special was synonymous with CBS appointment viewing. It aired once a year there, and if you missed it, that was it. You had to wait till next year. In 1985, it aired on October 30th alongside a new special, Garfield's Halloween Adventure. Like Peanuts, this was adapted from a comic strip, Jim Davis's Garfield. Garfield is a lazy cat that loves lasagna and hates Mondays. In this special, he and his canine counterpart Odie go trick-or-treating only to become lost. They stumble upon an old house where an old man informs them the ghosts of pirates will be returning there for the treasure they left 100 years earlier. Parts of this are absolutely terrifying. The effects on the ghosts are amazing. It was directed by Phil Roman, and animated at Film Roman, who was responsible for a lot of what we're going to be looking at actually, primarily The Simpsons. The same year this was produced, Garfield also starred in this PSA for Halloween safety tips, pretty standard stuff. Even before Halloween Adventure was produced, The Great Pumpkin aired with a Garfield special on the town, and after, the Halloween Adventure was paired with the Peanuts, This Is America, Charlie Brown. The closest I could find to the 90s was this commercial break from 1989. This was during Garfield, and there was a spot for The Great Pumpkin coming up next. Through researching this, I actually learned that this was the last time that Garfield would air until 1998, which is not how I remembered it at all. That should give you an idea of kind of what we're going for and where this tradition came from, so let us head into the 90s proper. Over on Fox, fall 1990 was the beginning of The Simpsons' second season. It was also the year the first Trios of Horror aired. I couldn't find any promos for it from 1990. I did, however, track down this ad from TV Guide, though. Also, I found these adjacent promos that let us see how it may have been promoted. This is for their Halloween Night Marathon. They ran that night Disney's Scary Tales of Halloween. This is a compilation of horror-themed Disney content. It aired alongside Airplane, which is sold as a scary movie, which I don't really get, before the night was capped off with a Halloween-centric night court. 1991 was much more fruitful. Here we see a promo for The Simpsons Trios of Horror 2, presented by the cast of Beverly Hills 90210. This is part of the first Fox's Halloween Bash. We'll be attending many of them, I assure you. This aired Halloween night, eventually week, and featured spooky episodes of The Simpsons, obviously, 90210, and the not long for this world Drexel's class. Another promo runs down the segments featured in the episode. Worth noting, this is the first time they used a stinger that sounded a lot like Michael Jackson's Thriller. Now, I'm not going to be breaking down every reference and every Trios of Horror. I'm sure you can find that elsewhere. I'm more interested personally in how they were promoted, but I do want to spend a little more time on some, especially if we can work it into our theme of television horror/Halloween. Many Trios of Horror episodes or segments are parodies of old Twilight Zone episodes. In last year's, there was one of To Serve Man. This year's featured a send-up of It's a Good Life, and in the following years, we would get Living Doll, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, Little Girl Lost, so many. Heading into 1992, Fox, we have comedian Julie Brown hosting the festivities this year. She starred in a sketch comedy show known as The Edge, the cast of which included the voice of SpongeBob, Tom Kenny, and Newman, Wayne Knight. It was created by David Merkin, who would go on to be the Simpsons showrunner in just a couple years. Julie presents The Simpsons, sharing the night with a Halloween-themed Martin, which we will be seeing again. This was Martin Lawrence's sitcom. It started as a radio DJ in Detroit. To take a break from The Simpsons for a bit, let's take a look at this promo from the Disney Afternoon. When I think of Disney and Halloween, especially in the 90s, I automatically default to the villain sing-along, Grim Grinning Ghosts. I had this on video. It scarred me for life. This spot is more or less a PSA to be careful while trick-or-treating. It features interactions between the characters from the Disney Afternoon. 1992 is also notable for the launch of Cartoon Network. I couldn't find anything spooky for its first year, but Halloween 1993 gave us Spooky Toons. This was marketed as a full day and night of scary cartoons. During the promos, the checkerboard is altered. It changes into bats and cats and skeletons, which is such a great effect. It's very simple, but it looks awesome. I also love the design of this pumpkin. This was before Cartoon Network really had original programming of their own, so they had to rely on horror-themed content from the libraries Turner had acquired. That night culminated with a double feature of the Flintstones meet Rockula and Frankenstein, and the Banana Splits in Hocus Pocus Park. Terrible. In 1993, Fox once again had the Halloween Bash, this time live from Universal Studios Florida. It was hosted this time by 90210's Brian Austin Green and culminated with the Simpsons Scare-a-thon. This was a 2-hour block featuring all the Trios of Horrors up to that point, leading to the premiere of the 4th. That episode featured Bart Simpson's Dracula, which was a parody of Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, but also the 1979 made-for-TV movie Salem's Lot, namely the scene with the child, the vampire child floating outside the window. This was directed by Tobe Hooper of Texas Chainsaw Massacre fame and was an adaptation of a Stephen King story. It followed a writer, obviously Bean King, who returns to his hometown to discover it is being overrun with vampires. I just watched it this year. I've been watching a lot of 70s made-for-TV horror and it was excellent. They've all been excellent. I can't recommend these enough. Back in 1993, though, the Simpsons Scare-a-thon was introduced by Bruce Campbell, who was probably best known for his role as Ash in The Evil Dead, definitely a seasonal favorite. Here he was promoting his Fox series, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., a show I thought was a ton of fun when I watched it a decade ago, though I have no idea how it holds up now. Fox would more or less repeat this format the following year with another Halloween Bash from Universal, another Scream-a-thon. Promos are nearly identical. Hosting duties this year were split between whorehouse Elvira and the Crypt Keeper. Fox had recently purchased the rights to the HBO series Tales from the Crypt and presented it in an edited format. They would have had to. We also get an appearance by George Carlin, who had a sitcom on Fox at the time. He comes out of the chamber from The Fly, which is very cool. Cast members of other Fox shows make appearances. They tour Universal Studios, they ride Jaws. I have been to this theme park, Universal, I've rode this, but when I went, I was much more excited to see the Nickelodeon Studios. That's where they were located, which is a great segue into Nickelodeon 1994. Now, we haven't talked about Nickelodeon on the channel, but I doubt it needs any introduction. It was the first cable network geared towards kids. Every Halloween, they would host a contest known as Nick or Treat. Nick or Treat was a live call-in show where viewers had the chance to win prizes. It changed formats a few times. Early on, you would send them your number and they would call you on a certain day. And if you answered with Nick or Treat, you'd win. Later on, you would call in and you would guess which door the prizes were behind. This was visualized in CGI, and contestants had 40 seconds to press the corresponding numbers on the doors on their phone. Behind the door would be characters from Real Monsters if they lost, and a pumpkin puppet if they won. Prizes in 1994-95 included VHS tapes and a Sega 32X, which just screams mid-90s. Cartoon Network in 1995 had this awesome promo, framed like an old 50s monster movie. It was dubbed The Month That Ate Cartoon Network. The night before Halloween, they also celebrated Halloween Eve with the Jetsons' Haunted Halloween and Halloween is Grinch Night, a largely forgotten special that fills in some of the Grinch's lore. Subway would bring us the 1995 Fox Halloween Bash, once again hosted by the Crypt Keeper. This was built around the premiere of the made-for-TV movie Here Come the Munsters, which attempted to update the classic show for the 90s. That's how it was promoted anyway. Future late-night host Jimmy Kimmel makes an appearance, trick-or-treating live Halloween night during the premiere. In terms of cartoons, this year the 5 previous Trios of Horror episodes were packaged as Simpsons Shriek Week, where one would air every weekday. The one that debuted that year, 6, is actually my personal favorite. It's the one with the Elm Street parody, Homer in 3D, and the advertisements that come to life. I don't know, made a huge impression on me as a kid. The fun thing about looking at these year to year is that you not only see changes in technology and the way properties, mainly The Simpsons, are thought of, but also just general attitude. The 90s were known for being extreme and in your face, and we definitely see that bloom as we enter the later half of the decade. The Bash gets rebranded as Fox Halloween Horror Nights, brought to us by Doritos. This CGI skull screams that at us. It's hosted again from Universal by David Charvet and Jennifer Love Hewitt, sort of passing the torch, I guess. I don't know, I never watched these shows. On the promo for The Simpsons, we get the caveat that it will air at its normal time, only if there is no World Series. Baseball, for many years, notoriously delayed The Simpsons to the point where they made jokes about it. In a future, Trios of Horror actually. For a few years, they actually scheduled their Halloween show a week after the holiday because of baseball. This aired during an election year, 1996, Clinton versus Dole, and probably the most famous of all Trios of Horror segments, Citizen Kane addressed this. The final run-up to US elections always takes place in October. Growing up, I associated them with Halloween. Every election, this episode gets memed everywhere. Between I Voted for Kodos and its commentary on America's two-party system, the segment does so much in just a short amount of time. Honestly, I can't think of anything scarier than this current election. In a couple of weeks, we'll actually be talking about this episode more in depth as we wrap up Season 2 of Animation Propaganda, looking at animated elections, so look forward to that. I couldn't find much for Cartoon Network in 1996, though I did find this promo of VHS they put out that year, featuring Scooby Doo and spooky episodes of the Flintstones. In 1997, they continued the tradition of hosting a 25-hour Scooby-Doo marathon. This would be a day-long event on the day that daylight savings came into effect, so 25 hours. They did this annually. The video we did on Cartoon Network actually focused on 1997, and I showed this quick parody of The Shining and said it was Top Cat. It isn't. I looked it up and it's Mr. Jinx. That year, they also hosted a haunted house party featuring the Addams Family animated and some of the Looney Tunes we've seen repackaged time and time again. Over on Fox, King of the Hill aired Halloween, its Halloween special. The show had debuted earlier that year, and this episode saw Hank battling a religious moral crusader, Junie Harper, who attempts to ban Halloween. Combat, which she saw as a demonic holiday, she organizes a hell house. Now, for those unfamiliar, a hell house is sort of like a haunted house, but super religious, Christian, rather than ghosts or ghouls. It's full of the horrors of not living a good Christian life, so same-sex relations, unplanned, unwitted pregnancies, that sort of thing. 1998 marked the return of Garfield's Halloween Adventure after 9 years. It was once again paired with The Great Pumpkin, which is promoted and treated with great reverence. It's clearly targeting boomers who grew up with it, saying you never missed it and now you can share it with your child. My parents certainly did. Fox promoted a Kiss concert in association with Mad TV. This was part of the Kiss resurgence in the late 90s. As for The Simpsons, we have an entire video on this year in Trios of Horror as a whole, if you want to check that out. To be honest, there wasn't much available for them for 1999. So now, on to what I consider to be the main event, the back-to-back excellence of Cartoon Network 1998-99. Scooby Doo dominated both of these years. In 1998, these interstitials aired, parodying Scream, Shaggy would call and harass Daphne. Cow and Chicken was the only Cartoon Network original I could find an explicit Halloween episode for. During this period at least, Halloween with Dead Ghost, Coast to Coast, parody of Space Ghosts. Cow and Chicken Dress as Humans. It aired in May of 1998. However, this same year, they ran an interstitial that saw Johnny Bravo courting Velma, with some spookiness. I absolutely love these parodies. I wish they made an entire series out of them, like Space Ghost or Harvey Birdman, what they would eventually do with Harvey Birdman. If they did, it may look something like this incredible series of promos building to the premiere of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. This film is treated as a reunion of sorts for the Mystery Inc., and in these promos, the life and careers of the individual members were explored, a la VH1's Behind the Music. This is called Those Meddling Kids, and would air during another 25-hour Scooby marathon. It addressed the rumors between Daphne and Fred, the etymology of the word Jinkies, the importance of Fred's ascot, and his want to be a mystery writer. It's great, but Cartoon Network would top it the following year with a Scooby-Doo project, an obvious parody of the Blair Witch Project. This reimagines a Scooby-Doo mystery as though it were found footage. It was for that year's marathon that was actually announced via a live press conference where the police sheriff announced it and that the kids were missing. Throughout the marathon itself, short clips would play between the episodes. They were a mixture of animation and live action, which produces a really cool effect, with the gang interviewing locals, becoming lost, and eventually haunted. Over 10 minutes of original material was produced, just to promote a marathon. It follows the same beats as Blair Witch, which at the time was a pop culture phenomenon. It was parodied everywhere, but this is just so well executed. The writing, the voice acting, and fan service, it's all so good, and if you haven't seen it, immediately do so. So yeah, that's about it. Sorry if this was long and hyper-specific, but I absolutely love nerding out on this shit. I have a ton of nostalgia for old TV promos, and I know there's plenty I missed, so feel free to post some of your favorite Halloween TV memories down below. If you want more Halloween-themed TV content, check out our video from last year on horror hosts and creature features. You also have Nightmare Core and our annual Sleepcore Screamathon to look forward to in the coming weeks. Last year's Screamathon also is available for free on Patreon. I will link below. I will also try my best to post links to all the material featured. There was a ton of it, so I'll try not to miss any. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and if you have the means, please consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/picsandportraits. As always, thank you so much for interest in this channel, and thanks for watching. Stay spooky.